gonna just have to go ahead and call this boy. Hello? Can I speak to Michael? Oh, hey, how you doing? I feel kind of silly doing this, but it's the waitress from the coffee house on 139th and Lenox. You know, the one with the braids. Well, I see you on Wednesdays all the time. You come in every Wednesday on your lunch break, I think. You always order the special with the hot chocolate. My manager be tripping and stuff, talking about we gotta use water, but I always use some milk and cream for you because I think you're kind of sweet. 17-year-old girls have the worst taste in men, and I say that as a retired 17-year-old. When I was 17, I was in love with this boy who could dance. Like, his whole thing was that he could dance. And I would be having conversations with him, and he would be pop-locking. And we would go for walks by the water, and he would be trying to moonwalk on the sand. And he would post pictures of himself mid-dance on Facebook, and I would comment under them, heart, 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 heart. And we would go to parties, and his one goal was for people to form a circle around him and for him to dance as they cheered him on. And I thought, what could be cooler than this? What could be more romantic than this moment? I loved the idea of being able to turn to the other girls in that circle and say, look but don't touch, ladies, because this one is mine. I wrote spoken word poetry about him. I kept my friends up into the wee hours in the morning, talking their ears off about him, and I wound myself up trying to keep him forever. And then one day, he started to crump. And then I met this boy who could sing. Anyway, you always got some fly blue suit, and your cufflinks shining all bright. So what you do? Oh, word? Yeah, that's interesting. Look, man, I mean, I don't want to waste your time, but I know girls don't usually do this, but I was wondering if maybe we could get together outside the restaurant one day. You know, because I do look a lot different outside my work clothes. And I mean, we could just go across the street to the park right here. Wait, hold up. My cell phone breaking up. Hold up. Oh, can you hear me now? Yeah. So what day did you say? Oh yeah, Thursday's perfect. Welcome back, Black Stars. I'm Anastasia X, and I love art almost as much as I love Black people. So I started Black Star Reviews to shine a light on the amazing work by Black creatives in New York City and beyond. Today I am reviewing Hell's Kitchen, which recently made its Broadway debut at the Shubert Theater. So let's get into it. We can't go any further without doing the dedication, and we are dedicating this episode to Audre Lorde, Black American writer, poet, and activist. Now, you might be tempted to screw your face up at this, but just hear me out, please. So, Audre Lorde was born in New York City in 1934, and she grew up in Harlem, and for a while, she went to a Catholic school that is actually just a few blocks from my house. And she talks about being so nearsighted that she was almost blind, and she had to wear these like ridiculously thick glasses. And that, when I read it, I immediately had an image in my mind of the kids from The Preacher's Wife, specifically the little girl that plays the sheep in the Christmas pageant. But I digress. I learned a lot about Audre and how she even changed the spelling of her name for symmetry alone. She changed it from Audre with a Y to Audre with no Y, which seems to have a flexible pronunciation because some people call her Audra, Audrey. I wish she was around so I could ask her myself. And I learned all of this from Zami, A New Spelling of My Name, which is a book she wrote, but it's not a memoir, and it's not an autobiography. She calls it a biomythography. Now, this is a genre that she invented, and it's a combination of biography, mythology, and history. That means that there are parts that are very much true and biographical, like how it felt to be the younger sister who couldn't seem to do anything right. And there are parts that are historical, like having to do air raid drills at school during the war. And then there are parts which are mythical, but those parts are nearly impossible to parse out. And it leaves you as a reader wondering, well, which part is the myth? Are all of these characters real? And specifically, which sexual encounters and relationships were imagined versus happened in real life? And I think this would be the perfect book for a book club because there's so much to talk about and to decipher. And it's also a really entrancing read. She has a very tender side, and it comes out when she describes some of her lovers. She seems like the kind of person where if she falls in love with you, she'd tell you, you have 215 freckles. I counted them while you were asleep. Which, like, she doesn't mean it in a creepy way. She's just truly romantic. She can even romanticize the struggle. She wants to take you back there with her, sleeping on the sofa bed at her girlfriend's house, choking on the smoke of the cigarettes from the neighbors, and getting by on coffee and dreams of a revolution, right? She can romanticize anything. So we are dedicating this episode to the late Audre Lorde for her foresight to create a genre that's both personal and imaginary, for being a New Yorker, for seeing women as self-sufficient, for having a pen game that makes you want to love somebody. So we will toast her with one of her own quotes, and it goes, "If I didn't define myself, I would be crunched into other people's fantasies of me and eaten alive." Here's to self-definition. Here's to Audre Lorde. How did I hear about this show? How didn't I hear about this show? This show is everywhere. In New York City, they have like video screens on top of cabs now, like where the light is. And I've never understood how these are not a distraction, not a safety hazard, but I saw it there. We have video screens on the sides of bus stops, which I think it would be really cool if we had, like, instead of movies in the park, like a citywide movie watch party on the sides of the bus stops. I think it would be cool. Just credit me if you use the idea. And now we have screens on the inside of the trains and also on the train platforms. And you cannot go too far in the city right now without seeing an actor from the show like kick or jump or like pop lock in one of these video ads. And I felt, because of these ads, so much pressure to see this show that I actually paid my own way. I just went ahead and bought a ticket rather than waiting to get an email back. So when I told people that I went to see Hell's Kitchen, they mainly seemed confused. Like, they were like, what? Which show? And then I said the magic words. I went to go see Alicia Keys' show on Broadway. And then they all asked me the same question afterwards. Was it good? And the answer, well, that's what I'm here to tell you. So Hell's Kitchen is a coming-of-age story about a girl named Allie who lives in the neighborhood on the west side of Midtown that's actually in real life, still exists, and is called Hell's Kitchen. We're not told what year it is, but I can tell you that nobody's calling anybody on a cell phone. And they're wearing Tommy boxers, and there's so much denim. Overalls, low-rise jeans, baggy jeans, denim vests, denim jackets, denim button-downs. I'd like to think that I did not participate in the pandemonium, but I'm probably wrong. I was there, I lived it. So you have this girl, Allie. She's 17, and she's so frustrated because her mom wants her in the house and out of the streets. But Allie is in the house by herself all the time. So it's like kind of giving Rapunzel. She's just so lonely. And it's a high-rise building, so she's in close proximity to her neighbors, and she can see the whole city from her window, but she just feels very, very alone. And so sometimes she hangs out in front of the building with her homegirls, which her mom still doesn't like her just standing right outside, because she be looking at this thick-armed boy named Nuck. Nuck as in if you buck. And he plays the buckets with his friends outside of her building. And she has one of those like very cute teenage crushes on him. So she tells her friends, she's talking all this trash. She's going to make him hers by the end of the summer. And in an exceedingly awkward turn of events, she actually succeeds. She does finally catch his attention. She wears him down and she starts to spend some time with him. But then her mom finds out. And Nuck ends up being accosted by the police. And as a result, Allie is like seeing red. Like she already wasn't feeling her mom because she's always on her case. But now mom has come between her and her man. And you know what it's like to be young and in love. You feel like you're in Romeo and Juliet. You feel like you're in West Side Story, like you're in Love Jones. Like you're right and the whole world is wrong and people are trying to keep you from your one true love. So in her attempt to give her mom the cold shoulder as like retribution and punishment for ruining her relationship, she starts deciding to just like sulk in the community room in the building instead of going home. And this is where she meets the piano teacher who will change her life. The character's name is Miss Liza Jane. So after a few weekly lessons, Allie becomes a piano impresario at the age of 17. And it's difficult to leave you with a proper cliffhanger in this summary because there are actually a few concurrent storylines. There's Allie, who's discovering herself as a musician and her relationship with Miss Liza Jane. Then there's her ongoing conflict with her mom because Allie is trying against all odds to grow up. And her mom is trying very earnestly to prevent her from making the same mistakes that she made at Allie's age. And then there's a third storyline about Allie trying way too hard to get this bucket boy to take her serious. And in the show, these storylines converge, but they don't converge into one big conflict. It's just that each thread impacts the others. And that's the basis of the story. I know that some people are wondering whether or not this is a jukebox musical, and I was wondering the same thing going in. I've told y'all before that I struggle with feeling excited to see jukebox musicals. Like, I have not gone to see the MJ Experience, first, because of the outstanding allegations, and two, because I find that the MJ Experience is somewhere in that like uncanny valley between hologram concert and a cover band residency. If it was the MJ biography, I would be so much more inclined. But they're just singing his songs. And to me, this is the essence of a jukebox musical. It's like a gumbo of popular songs instead of original music. And that's where the line gets murky for me in Hell's Kitchen. And I think that even your answer to the question of whether or not it's a jukebox musical will depend on how closely you followed Alicia Keys' discography. So like in my mind, Alicia is still at the coffee shop on Linux trying to get Mos Def to know her name. Like Songs in A Minor, Diary, Element of Freedom, those are all burned in my brain. They live right here, right? Can't get them out. But there were songs in the show that I thought were original songs, but truly, I just wasn't up to date on her catalog. So honestly, it was a nice way to be introduced to some of her newer music. And as a result, I've been on an Alicia Keys listening kick ever since. Now, there is one new song called Kaleidoscope, which really captures both the energy of the show and the energy of the city. If you want like a taste of what the show is like, just listen to Kaleidoscope. If you like that, you'll like the show. So to me, I would say Hell's Kitchen is not a jukebox musical, but if you are a heavy Alicia Keys listener, like if you play her all day, every day, it's not going to be anything new to you. But if you, like me, were like a heavy middle school listener, there's going to be something in there for you that feels new. Now, the show is billed as a coming-of-age story inspired by Alicia Keys' own experiences in New York City. And during the intermission, my friend Bree and I were in line for the bathroom, and we were trying to figure out which parts of the show are biographical and which parts are embellishments. Now, obviously, Alicia Keys could not have casually picked up the piano at age 17. There's footage of her playing the piano much younger, right? She was seen as this like wonderkind. So we know that part isn't true. But is it possible that her piano teacher was somebody a lot like Miss Liza Jane? Yes, absolutely. It's possible, right? Was her dad a traveling pianist and a less than reliable father? I'm not sure. Frankly, I don't think it's my business. But is her mom white in real life? We have the evidence and we know the answer is yes. And it's so funny to me, every time she got fresh and talked back to her mom, I could feel the Black people around me in the audience thinking, she only act like that because her mama white. We can't help it. But honestly, the fact that it's loosely based on her life, I think is what makes it fun. It's that biomythography genre that Audre Lorde created. There are equal parts personally true, historically accurate, and then just flat out fantastical. It keeps you guessing, I think, because we know how Alicia Keys' real life turned out. And she is most definitely not with the thick-armed bucket drummer. So no suspense there. And Allie, the main character, she's such a goof. She can't get a sentence out to this boy without putting her foot in her mouth. And I feel like if this were true of you, or at least if it was true of me, I would not write that into a show for the world to see, because I wouldn't want to relive the mortification. And there's the fact that Allie is 17, like I said, and Nuck is a legal adult. So if any part of the show is creative license, I hope it's Allie being the world's least smooth criminal that you've ever seen, chasing this man across the city and asking to take him out to eat. At the same time, she did write a #1 song about ignoring the manager and using milk and cream because she thought some man was sweet. So, as far as loosely based goes, that part might be less loose and more based. She has a track record, so it's hard to weigh in. I do want to mention, though, that even though this show has a love interest, the show is not about romantic love as much as it is about self-love and the special kind of love between a mother and a daughter that's reshaped by the younger woman's need to step out in front and self-define. And that creates tension with the mom, but generally, you go through that phase, you come out the other side stronger together. And in that same vein, I'm thinking about Alicia's intentions with the show. Is this, like Audre Lorde encourages, an attempt at self-definition? It feels like Alicia has been everywhere lately. She and her husband's art collection is on view at the Brooklyn Museum. She popped up at Usher's Super Bowl performance and had a little viral moment. And now she's here. And even if she's not there, on stage, her music is there on Broadway. So if this is a moment of self-definition, I'm just curious, what's the headline? What's the new definition? Is she gearing up for a presidential run? Is she finished making music? Has she only just begun? Is there a next phase in her career that she is signaling toward with this show? And from there, my bigger question is, if this is true, if Alicia Keys is truly preparing for a second act or a second phase, how open will the audience be to this new moment? And are we ready for Alicia, the composer and the songwriter? Are we ready for her to be not only behind the piano, but fully behind the scenes? I'll add this to the agenda for the next cookout. But regardless of whether she's defining, redefining, or refining, one thing cannot be argued. I will not entertain arguments about this. Alicia Keys can write a song. She could put pen to paper. She could put fingers to keys. She will write you something beautiful. She will write you a little earworm. If I sing to you, some people want it all, I know you're singing the next line. You can't not sing the next line because it's a good song and it lives inside you, right? So what I love so much about Alicia's songs in this context, in the context of this show, was the way that they were subverted. I am in my 30s. I've been hearing some of these songs my whole life, or at least since I was old enough to sing along. But they sounded so new on this stage. Songs that I thought were only about romantic love were sung from a father to a daughter, or from a friend to another friend. And baby, the way they reharmonized these songs, the way they turned some of them into duets, there were multiple moments when my spine was tingling and the hairs on my arm were standing up because they hit those notes. So whether they get a Tony or not, I'm gonna need them to lay that soundtrack on some wax because the people need the music. And, you know, just thinking about Alicia again, when you can write a song that's that timeless, that people can cover, that people can play with, I think that must feel like such an honor. And this show was a big red reminder that Alicia Keys has a songwriting talent that is undeniable. You could say what you want, but you can't say that she can't write a song. Finally, there is a mythology of New York that I think will make this musical such a draw for tourists and anyone who's trying to live their New York dreams. You already know that the grand finale is Empire State of Mind, right? I know that I've given bucket drummers a hard time in this episode and maybe even given them a hard time in real life, but that's because sometimes I forget that bucket drumming is somebody's dream. It is somebody's dream to make music for a living, and it's somebody else's dream to fly to this city, ride a subway train for the first time, and give $1 to a bucket drummer in their bucket. This show is so hopeful, so anything can happen, so today is the first day of the rest of my life. And when I'm smushed against a window in a morning rush hour on the train, I have to remember this moment, these odors, this intimacy with a stranger. This is somebody's dream. Because yes, people dance and sing at all times of night. We Millie rock on any block. Because if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Overall, I am giving Hell's Kitchen 3 black stars. It's such a wonderful showcase of talent. The singing and the dancing exceeded expectations by far. And the subversion of songs, like I was talking about before, really makes this worth seeing. I just wanted a little bit more direction from the narrative. Like it felt like it was trying to tell the story of a mother-daughter relationship and an inspired artist's humble beginnings and a teenage love story, and then add in like a little smidge of Fight the Power. And I think this show's best feature was its blow the roof off vocals. And while it's a musical, I personally like a little more story in my musicals because otherwise we could just have a concert. Now, if it was a concert, I would attend because again, the vocals were vocaling. So I do think that you should see this show because it feels like such a moment. If you're around my age, like if you're late 20s to late 30s, I would say, probably even older than that, it's going to take you back. It took me back to my adolescence, like the clumsiness, those moments where I was so sure about everything. And then I was so sure about everything that I had to run into a rude awakening. And this may very well be Alicia Keys' ticket to the EGOT Club. If you think about her peers the way I do, as John Legend and Beyonce, all of them started their solo careers around that time, and they've all dabbled beyond Grammys, beyond just music. So this might be the beginning of Alicia kind of going in a different direction, and I think you would want to be a part of that, to say that you saw it, to say that you were there from the beginning. And Broadway shows are not forever, so if you don't see it, you might be sad that you didn't see it. And I'm telling you, you're going to want to keep an eye on all of the actors in this show because this is not the last time that you've seen them. Maleah Joi Moon, especially, you're probably going to see her everywhere after this. But also Brandon Victor Dixon, Kecia Lewis, Chris Lee, and his understudy, Lamont Walker II, who was performing the night I went. Congrats, Lamont. And Shoshana Bean. If you covered my eyes while she was singing, I would have thought this was an all-black cast. Amazing vocals from the whole team. And then you have Camille's choreography. It was, I would call it explosive because you really couldn't miss it. And her work in this show is polarizing. Like I heard a few different opinions from people outside after the show. You'll either find it moving or you'll find it distracting. But I tell you what, you won't fly under the radar. You won't miss a single move. I personally love watching choreographers perform their work rather than being behind the scenes. So my eye was on Camille for all of the dance scenes, through every costume change, all of it, because I just love the freedom on her face when she dances. She looks so joyful every time I see her perform, and I find that inspiring. So who would I take to see this show? This is the perfect show for Mother's Day. Take a mom. Take your mom. If you're a mom, have somebody take you. The mother-daughter dynamic was familiar, both in the turbulence and in the sweetie moments. So if you're a mom of a teen, you can take your teen. She might roll her eyes at you, but she might also give you a hug later without asking. You never know. Take a dancer, take a singer, take a musician, take a New Yorker, take a transplant, take a bucket drummer, if you can get them to leave the corner long enough. But you'll leave this show energized, ready to dance, ready to take the city by storm. So where do you go after a show like this? Good question, and so glad you asked. Did you know that only 2.1% of businesses in New York are Black owned, even though Black people make up 22% of the city's population? Isn't that crazy? Yeah, so as a result, there are only 2 Black-owned restaurants that are close to the theater district that I can recommend for you. Queen of Sheba and Legos, both of which I love. So I'm going to keep recommending those until somebody opens a Black-owned empanada truck that pulls up in that area, because that and not more hot dog stands is what this city needs. I hope you'll grab easy tickets to see Hell's Kitchen sometime this spring or this summer, and I hope you'll share your thoughts with me in the comments on Instagram or on TikTok. If you are a fan of Alicia Keys and her husband Swizz Beatz, be sure to check out my review of their private art collection, which is now on view at the Brooklyn Museum. And also go see the show. It's worth seeing. I gave that 5 stars. So if you've already watched that episode, watch that review. Stay tuned for the next one and be sure to subscribe so you'll know when my next review is posted. As always, your contributing view and your support moves me very deeply. So thank you for watching. Sending you so much Black love and starlight. Stay shining, y'all.